Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Jersey Joe Corner. It is brought to you by Big Heads Media. It is going to be a great hockey season coming right up. A lot of interesting things. Anchor.fm will help you start your podcast and get things rolling. It's going to be a lot smoother when you get the Anchor app, and it's so much easier to navigate. Even their online website at anchor.fm is very efficient, and you can do a lot of great things with it.
With the first pick overall, the New Jersey Devils are proud to select from the U.S. program, Jack Hughes.
Let's go, baby!
Plays it across, Vatanen drives, score! Sammy Vatanen let it rip. It's a power play goal, and the Devils have opened it up.
Oh, my.
Nico walking in, shooting, score! Nico Asher on the rush, ends it in overtime, and the Devils win it in Montreal.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Hey, Alex, I got you in there. Hold on a second. I'm trying to get Jim in.
All right, sounds good.
All right, so this is a little funny that you came in, and it's just you and me for the moment.
Yeah.
This is the man of the hockey writers. He covers Devils hockey, put out a recent article. Let's talk a little bit about it when Jimmy Boy gets on, but let's talk a little bit about – all right.
Hey, what's up,
Right.
everybody? How we
There
doing
we go.
tonight?
We got everyone in.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
So,
Airtable discussion.
I know there's the roundtable discussion on Sirius XM. I quote, "This is mine. I'm going to try to trademark it. Welcome to another edition of the Airtable discussion, talking Devils hockey." Here we go. Tuesday night.
Yeah, here we go.
All right, so we're not going to talk about the NHL draft right away. That's going to be like the back burner issue at the end. What I want to do is Jim proposed this idea is that we start from
The beginning, and then
season.
we go through the regular season, and then to the draft.
So let's start off with the preseason a little bit. So drafted Jack Hughes, which I believe is the right move. You traded and signed for Nikita Gusev, traded for PK Subban, acquired Wayne Simmons. Now let's go to opening night versus Winnipeg. Basically, Schneider broke down. Alex, you can go from there.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously things were looking really good in the first part of that game. They were up, what was it, 4-0, I think, at one
Yeah,
point?
4-0. Yeah, 4-0.
Yeah,
Middle of the
and,
second.
yeah, and then Blake Coleman had that ridiculous, one-handed goal, and you were like, all right, well, with the offseason and everything was looking great, and then Schneider goes down with cramps, and Blackwood comes in cold in, the third period, and after that, it was just basically a sum of how the season would go for the Devils, because everything after that went completely wrong.
Yeah, it felt like that that night set the tone for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I would agree.
If they win that game, everything's positive, but all this negative energy just kept going after that game, and they just never found a way to stop it.
Yeah, and then I don't think we'll ever know, but they said Schneider went down with just cramps, but maybe he was, I don't know, because he's had hip injuries in the past. Maybe he was a little bit banged up there, and he never they never really went public with it. Because he looked great in the preseason. You were like, all right, I think he's going to be able to continue off what he did at the end of last season. But then I don't know, he was never the same after that point. And he goes down and he plays in Binghamton for 2 months, and everything was just kind of a mess after that. And then it wasn't just Schneider; the whole team wasn't playing well at that point.
To me, it was a mixture of John Hines, a mixture of the power play wasn't clicking.
Yeah.
Then it was Taylor Hall wasn't playing up to snuff. Or as Jim Source said that he checked out in the first few games. Is that true, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've been told. I mean, you could tell from the beginning. I was just watching the first couple games, and I would text somebody that I know, and I'd be like, "Hey, it feels like Hall's checked out," and all would get would be a thumbs up as a reply. That's just my opinion. But what do you feel the same way, Alex?
I mean, it's kind of hard to know. I don't know if he ever checked out. I think maybe it was just more of a thing that like the knee injuries finally caught up to him a little bit because he just didn't look like the same skater. And even when he went to Arizona, it wasn't like all of a sudden, oh, well, this is the Taylor Hall that won the MVP. He still kind of struggled in Arizona too. So I don't know I wouldn't say maybe he checked out, but it's tough to say if you're not in the locker room and you're not around him. I think it was just more that injuries kind of caught up to him a little bit, and he may not be that dominant player he was a couple of years ago anymore. So was he had like 2 knee injuries when he was with the Devils?
Yeah, that and some other player related injuries that got to him eventually.
Yeah, I know in his MVP season, I think he had like the torn ligament in his hand or something like that, and then the season before he had like and then he had like a torn meniscus in 2016-17. So those are some serious injuries that they'll take a toll on you at some point.
Oh, definitely, especially with those torn meniscus. But I was gonna say, the way his performance has been, do you think that his value from this season going into free agency, do you think it's dropped a little bit?
Yeah, if he was expecting to get somewhere around $10 to $11 million per season, I don't think he's going to get that anymore. And it's kind of unfortunate that the season just ended because of the coronavirus and he didn't get a chance to conclude it. And maybe, if the Coyotes found a way to get into the playoffs, he would have ended up having a great playoffs and boosted his value. So yeah, I think it's going to take a little bit of a hit. I don't even know if he's going to get the term he wants at this point. I would think teams might be a little bit reluctant to give him a 7-year deal if he gets in free agency. So it might be one of those deals where he has to kind of look for like maybe a 2-3 year deal, hope he does really well, and then maybe try to catch out after that.
I think like what Cam Jansen said on our last episode was, you got to be a really smart business mind and not give too much term, but the right amount of money. And it seems like you're in the right ballpark. I think if I am John Chayka, I'm looking at 3-year or 2-year, $5.5, $7.5 million in that range. Maybe some little bit extra bonus money if he performs at certain levels, but then you really don't know what's going on from there because the cap may decreased a little bit more than we thought it would.
Yeah.
Between 82 and 88 over 3-year span could deteriorate.
Yeah, no, that's definitely possible. Because I think what Daly was saying before the coronavirus suspension is that they were expecting like the cap to go up to maybe 88 million or something like that around.
I think the proposed range was 84 to 88 million.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
With most likely the figure being around like 84 and a half, 85. No one expects it to go to 88. I mean, that would be really great. I think the 88 million was if the players did something with escrow,
right,
like really accelerated it to be 88 million. But I think the number people were settling on was like 84 and a half, 85.
Yeah. And I imagine it's probably not going to even get to that at this point with the loss of like playoff revenue and stuff. So, that might affect. It's going to put teams in a tighter cap crunch too. So, like, say if a contender is looking to bring in Hall and they don't really have the money, that might limit his options a little bit too. I know back in the Athletic a couple of weeks ago, Corey Masisak mentioned like it's really unlikely that Hall comes back to the Devils, but like it's not out of the realm of possibility. I don't see it happening, but I mean, if he really doesn't get what he wants, I know ownership loved him, so that would be an interesting. That'd be an interesting thing on the offseason.
I think,
Yeah, it would be.
I think if I put my GM hat on right now, I mean, if Taylor's going to ask for more money than what I would expect out of a younger forward going forward, I would move on from Hall completely because why do you want the same performance out of last year's guy and someone who's getting, no offense that he's a little bit older than me, he's a little bit younger than me, he's in his early 30s, but who knows where the rest of his potential is and when he's going to start to really, really slow down. And I started to see a little bit of that. That kind of scared me off after the Devils traded him to Arizona for Kevin Ball and Merkley and Schnarr. So
Yeah. I mean,
that's where I'm moving on from him.
yeah, I mean, it's tough. I really love Hall as a player. I know it got kind of rough with fans at the end, but if you look back to that 2017-18 season, I mean, the Devils fans haven't had a more exciting season than that since the 2012 Stanley Cup. So, and he's the first Hart Trophy winner in the franchise's history. So, like, I look back on his time, positively for the most part, even though it ended kind of on a sour note. But I mean, the Devils have a ton of cap space, so if it ever got to that point, they could end up doing it again. But yeah, I agree with you. I would probably move on from him and just try to look into getting a younger team around Jack and Nico and Jesper and those guys.
Yeah, and then we have the Hall trade.
Right.
Then John Hines gets fired. Well, that might have happened beforehand, but you had John Hines get fired,
Yep.
Hall trade, and then we had the Sunday that shocked like everybody.
Yeah.
Where Ray Shero gets fired.
I was shocked that day,
That
too.
was really
Yeah.
that was really crazy.
I don't think anyone, like, I saw a lot of people say this too, is when Cheryl got fired, like, it was shocking, but it also wasn't surprising. Like, if you look at the team's results under Cheryl, they had that one season in 2017-18. Now it's kind of just because Hall went freaking crazy and they got great goaltending from Schneider in the first half of the season and then Kincaid in the second half. So, like, but like, if you look at Cheryl's like body of work for the most part, it was kind of, they shouldn't have been this bad going into, what was it, season 5 with him. So, like, I understand it from that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, and then all the moves they made in the summer to get
Right, Subban,
this team.
Simmons, Gusev. I mean, Subban and Simmons didn't really work out. Gusev, it took a while, but he looks like he's going to be really
He's
good
a
going
mainstay.
forward. Yeah, he's
definitely mainstay.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know if they're going to re-sign him this summer, but it'd definitely be on my short list of some off-season moves to do. I mean, he's just an amazing playmaker. He has such great vision, and he might not be the greatest skater, but like, he's so good offensively, and that's the type of player the Devils kind of need right now.
I think he's this generation's version of Stéphane Richer in a way where he can snipe a lot, and he has that. But he has that extra, like a young Kovalchuk does, like where he sees one play ahead and one few too many inches ahead, where he could create a little bit of space between him and the defenseman and the goaltender that most people don't see when you draft a player. And that's what Tampa Bay saw when they drafted him. And then they eventually had to trade him in the expansion draft to Vegas.
Yeah, it's his vision is just, even Hall was the team's best passer until, they traded him. But I can't remember seeing a passer like Gusev on the Devils. And I guess since Elias was around.
I would say Gomez.
Yeah, I was going to say Gomez originally too, but then I was like, Patrick Elias was a pretty good passer too. But
I know they were both so good.
It was just Gusev's vision's elite. You could see why he had 62 assists in the KHL last season and why he was like the MVP and stuff. Like, he's never going to be like a 30-40 goal scorer, but I think in a full season, in a full season, you could expect like 40 to 50 assists from him for sure. It's going to be interesting to see what he does next year. There's not going to be a transition for him. It's going to be going straight into NHL play. So, if you're looking for something to be excited about with the Devils next season, Gusev is definitely one of them.
And going back to Shero for a minute. Sorry, Joe, to cut you off.
I was going to say,
we're
talking about Shero skipped a summer of free agency, and they compounded so much off-season work in one season because they had missed out on so much.
Yeah.
But Shero's been basically rehabbed the team from lose mismanagement and drafting over the years that it's showing a lot, but we're not at the point where the pipeline is totally reliable to the fullest extent where it could be like pick up this guy from down to Newark and get him plugged into this spot. We need a full-time GM and a full-time coach and a full-time staff that will be, adding in each player one by one that fit each other's chemistry. And like Danico said on another podcast, where you can't have just skilled guys. You need to have also guys with high energy and grit. And he said that in the last Devils podcast, and I actually agree with that. And Cam Jansen backed him up, saying you need big physical guys, skilled guys on a team Lewis, and you don't want to rush all these rookies.
Yeah, I agree with Dano, and I was listening last night to Cam Jansen. I agree with him too. I think that's why they need players like Nathan Bastian, Joey Anderson, like kind of guys who have a little bit of offensive punch, but you're going to be playing like bottom roles, and they're going to probably play like a physical game. So like they need players like that to start, making their way in the NHL. I think that was definitely one of Chero's faults, I guess, is just not really getting like they don't have a physical edge on the team. And like he did a great job getting guys like Kyle Palmieri and Taylor Hall and some skill guys in the draft like Jesper Bratt and obviously Hughes and Nico. But like, yeah, they definitely need to find a way to get it tough. I think they have some prospects in the system that will get there at some point.
Do you think one of Shiro's other faults was not re-signing Taylor Hall this past offseason?
I think in hindsight, definitely. I wouldn't say definitely. I think in hindsight, no. I think they were concerned about the injuries, because what was it, 2 knee injuries. I think they were a little concerned about the injuries. That's my guess. I think there's a reason why they didn't just give him a blank check in July, even though the owners wanted to, or it seemed like the owners really wanted to re-sign him. So, no, I wouldn't say that's a fault of his. I think if this season was like a true indication of Hall maybe starting to go in decline a little bit, then they might have actually gotten a bit lucky that they didn't sign him to like a ridiculous 8-year deal, with like a cap hit, above $10 million. I wouldn't say that's a fault of Chero's.
Okay. And then, one of the things Joe and I've always talked about is you have to go through – I don't want to classify players as misfit toys, but it's an analogy. One of the guys I talk with a lot about hockey, and you look with like these expansion teams that came in, Vegas aside, they have all these players that they get from other teams, and they have to figure out who fits in, and they have to go through all these, new toys, whatever. It seems like that's what Shiro was doing down on the farm with these guys, especially the guys that like Lou drafted. I mean, there's some of those guys are finally showing progression, Mikey McLeod being one of them, Bastian, Joey Anderson. But I think, like you said, I feel like Shiro didn't get enough out of those guys to show, like, okay, like what happened with Pittsburgh. Guys would, a guy would go down like a Crosby or a Malkin, boom, Jake Ketzel's up, Connor Sheary's here, boom. Like these guys fit right in. It felt like the Devils guys just didn't like get in right away.
Yeah, I mean, there's Brian Rust too, of course, who was another Shero. I think Shero signed Brian Rust when
he signed a lot of players and drafted a lot of players that are
I
still
think
there.
Gensel was one of his draft picks too. So like a lot of he still has his imprint on the Penguins, and I agree with Jim there. But like anytime the Devils brought up someone from Binghamton, I just feel like they didn't really like contribute anything. But at the same time, they were bringing up like they brought Joey Anderson up. It was kind of obvious he wasn't really ready for the NHL yet. And I think if you look at this season, you could probably make that case for Jesper Boquist. He was great in Sweden last season, but didn't look like he was really NHL ready. So, and they didn't have the organizational depth yet to get at that point where they could be like Pittsburgh, where they could say like, I don't know, Nico or Kyle goes down, you bring up someone from Binghamton and, you're not really missing a beat. They're not at that point yet. And I don't know if I could say that's Cheryl's fault. I just think it actually was going to take a lot longer for that to happen because of how bad of shape the Devils were in when he took over.
Yeah, I mean, not really a fault. I like really just an observation because it's just you see going back, like the Devils were the king of drafting and developing during their championship runs. Guys would just come up and like that 2000 team, 3 rookies just come in and they win a cup. It's like unheard of.
Yeah, and I mean the Devils haven't been like that for a long time now. I mean those back, after like that 2003 Cup is really when Lou's drafting just really went downhill after that. Like I think the last good picks he really made were obviously Zach Parise and Travis Zajac, and then I guess it was Miles Wood Damon Severson was I think one of his draft picks, and Blake Coleman
was a second.
Yeah, and Blake Coleman was one of his draft picks too in the later rounds. So. But I mean, everyone knows about Lou's drafting at this point.
And we got a high return on equity for Blake Coleman when you got Nolan Foote, who's a really good power forward and a really good sniper with that heavy shot. And even Hockey Canada, their goaltending coach said that his shot is so heavy that it's like a bowling ball going in on the goaltenders.
That's a pretty good comparison because. Yeah, I mean, I think of the Devils' prospects for now, he's definitely got the best shot out of all of them, but like by far. And Devils fans first of all, Devils need a player like that. They don't have anyone with an elite shot other than Kyle Palmieri and probably Jesper Bratt. So, yeah, it's going to be exciting to see Foote when he finally breaks in the NHL.
I feel it's the right move to allow him to go into Binghamton. I almost said Albany, but I know it's Binghamton. That's how I'm starting to show my age a little bit, my brain age. But I certainly believe that a lot of these kids are coming over, from the CHL. We talk about those kids like a Foote, like an Ohotyuk or a Ball, whatever. We're going to see them in death camp or whatever they're going to do once this COVID-19 ends. Yeah. And we, the fans and evaluators of podcasting, whatever you want to call it, we will be able to get an even better in-depth look and be like saying, this guy might need a year of seasoning, maybe a half a season of seasoning, and this kid might be ready, or this kid is ready, or maybe needs a couple years more.
Yeah, I think you'll see that with a bunch of players in camp. Foote being one of them. Ty Smith, we'll see if he's finally ready to just go straight into the NHL. Who else is going to be? Even like guys who played in the NHL this year, is like, will Boquist be able to take that next step forward? Well, Joey Anderson, Kevin Ball too. So yeah, this should be a pretty interesting training camp and preseason for the Devils, assuming it gets started on time.
My 2 questions left for the Russians would be, will Daniel Misiul come over, and will Arseny Gritsyuk be ready enough to eventually come over to New Jersey and go to, let's say, Binghamton and play with Yegor Sharangovich and a couple of the other Eastern European players?
I think Gritsyuk just played in the Russian Junior League like pretty much all season. I don't know if did he play in the MHL or the VHL this season?
I believe it was the MHL. He scored something like, I think it was like 6 or something. Big playmaker. Like, he does take in like at least 20 goals at minimal.
Yes. So I don't think he would come over this season. I think he's probably the next step for him would be start playing professionally in Russia in either the VHL, or if he can get KHL time, that'd be great. And then I know Devils Misiul looked pretty decent at the World Junior Championship, and he's a pretty big dude as it is. So but I don't know what his contract is like in Russia too. So and I don't think the KHL and the NHL really have like an out clause kind of thing. So I think he's probably gonna be in Russia for a little longer.
Yeah, and then going through the season, Devils make the coaching change in Azardine from Hines. How do you evaluate the differences? Between Hines and Azardine. One was doing better than the other. Was it time for Hines to go because he had been here just as long as Shiro?
I think one of this, we can even tie this back into what we were talking about with Cheryl's faults before. I think one of the biggest mistakes he made was hanging on to Hines as long as he did, because it was kind of obvious in October, honestly, that it looked like the players were checked out on him. And from what I've heard, that was kind of the case as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think it was definitely time for him to go. They should have done it a lot earlier. I don't know if it would have been able to save the season, but yeah, they made the right move doing it. They were playing a style of play on their Hines that I just didn't feel like it fit the makeup of the roster. They have a bunch of smaller, skilled wing or forwards, I should say, like Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt and Paul Mary, that they're not meant to be playing in this slow pace, like kind of grind it out kind of system. And that's one of the biggest changes that Nasruddin made. At least they didn't really make like any systemic changes. They just played at a much faster pace under Nasruddin. So that was good. But I mean, if you look at the underlying numbers between each coach, I mean, Nasruddin really didn't fare that much better. They just got insane goaltending from Mackenzie Blackwood and even Schneider when he came back up for a few games. So it'd be interesting to see what the Devils do with Nasruddin, but I would definitely not. I'm not trying to bring him back as the permanent head coach next season.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a good assistant coach. But
yeah, but
I do want to know what your thoughts are. Who you'd recommend to be a coach going forward? Like, who are your candidates that you might want to tell us?
So obviously Gerard Gallant is, a big one. I mean, you see every Devils fan. You even see it in the Devils mentions. Sometimes it's just like announce Gallant before the season was suspended at least. Yeah. So obviously Gallant is going to be a huge. He's going to be a top candidate, or he should be a top candidate. Bruce Boudreau is a little more controversial. You always see people say like, "Oh, well, he could never win in the playoffs," and
his time in Anaheim and Minnesota.
Yeah, but like
Washington. Well, he was there with Washington. They had all those runs. I mean, they just ran into Pittsburgh and
yeah. So like, it's not like, and especially in Washington, it's not like they ever lost, to a team they should have beat. I mean, the Penguins were just really good at that time.
And I mean, the only team that you would think, I think Boudreau was there for, the only real team that they probably should have beaten was Montreal in 2010. But Halak just stood on his head.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Halak was ridiculous that season. I forgot about that. And then he made it to the conference finals with the Ducks, if I'm not mistaken. So, and they lost to Chicago, right?
Yeah,
in Game 7 too, wasn't it? Something like that.
Yeah, exactly. He's lost like so many Game 7.
Yeah.
So it's not like he doesn't get the team to the playoffs and they don't go far. They just run into good teams.
Right, and that's
like
what that's what I see with Devils fans too. They're like, "Oh, well, Boudreau doesn't win in the playoffs." I'm like, "Well, we're not exactly making the playoffs right now. It would be nice if you got to get to the playoffs first." And Boudreau basically takes every team he has to the playoffs. So him and Gallant would be top candidates, and then. It depends what happens with Dan Bylsma in Detroit. I would imagine that staff is going to get the axe at some point, and but so if Bylsma becomes available, he'd definitely be one of my top candidates too. And then they'll obviously look at like AHL coaches, because sometimes you can't get the big name to come over. So, but my top choices would definitely be Bylsma, Boudreau, and Gallant.
What about Ricard Grunberg from the Zurich Lions?
Yeah, I know everyone loves Grunberg, and I love him too because of just, first of all, that beard is amazing. Yeah, that thing is it's awesome.
Viking
That's
beard.
it. That's
like
that's awesome.
How often do you see an NHL coach with a beard that awesome? Just for that, you got to have him. You got to consider him. But like, I read an article back on Sportsnet a while back. It was towards like the beginning of the season, saying how like Grunberg installed like the system to fit, the roster of was it Zurich, right? He coaches.
The Zurich Lions were.
Yeah, so
it's the same club Austin Matthews played for in his draft year.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, I mean, when I saw Grunberg had said that, he was like, I'm playing a style of hockey that fits the makeup of my roster, and I'm pretty sure Zurich finished the Swiss League in first place, or they were one of the best teams in the Swiss League this year. So the only thing is, I don't know what his NHL out is like. If he can get out for next season, yeah, you got to consider him, because I think it's just time for, like, sometimes you shouldn't be rehashing like old ideas. Sometimes it's good to get a fresh set of ideas in, and Grunberg would be exactly that.
Oh, it would be perfect for a fit for him. I mean, I've heard nothing but good things about him.
Same here.
I've watched a lot a lot of his games, and it's perfect. Like you have this roster. Okay, now I'm gonna put a system in that fits the players that I have. It's like when the Devils, were winning championships. Okay, well, they were defense oriented. Yes, they could score, but their system was based on defense, and Marty stopped everything. Well, now your defense isn't the greatest, but you have offensive weapons, and Grunberg could figure out a way to mesh everything together.
Yeah, I completely agree there.
I think one of the things that you have to consider, what I was reading between the Athletic, Sportsnet, and a few other places on Google, was that Grunberg has meshed a hybrid system of Swedish European hockey with the North American style game, and then he also uses analytics to back it up. And given the fact that Ray Shero was kind of leveraged off by the analytics team by what were their names, Matt Kane and
Tyler Dello.
Tyler Dello, thank you for the other name. So these other guys that could be vying for him. So I wouldn't be surprised if these two analytics guys vouched for him and then kind of shoved Joshua Harris in the idea of saying, this is our guy. We need a fresh mind. We need someone that fits our system and our philosophy. Yeah,
I could definitely see that happening, especially since it sounds like Josh Harris and Dave Blitzer want and the next GM to have a pretty big say in analytics too. So yeah, I could definitely see that, start with the new GM, then you kind of just have that like a trickle down effect where the GM's working with the analytics team, then you have the coach, the GM, and the analytics team working together. So yeah, I could definitely see that, especially if Grunberg says like, I use these in my coaching decisions.
It's crazy because you see all this like talk of like reading after everything came out about when Shiro was fired about him not getting along with the analytics team, and there were some rumblings about how it could have been the analytics team making this suggestion to Harris and Blitzer, hey, he's really not following what we're saying, we're not really having a cooperative. You got any feeling on that?
So if you look at PK Subban's season last season, in 2018-19, you'd be like, all right, there's maybe a little cause for concern here, but it was only one season. So like,
right.
All right, maybe he just had a bad season and he rebounds. Turns out that wasn't the case. So I could have seen Kane and Dello being a little bit apprehensive about acquiring PK Subban, but at the same time, they really gave up nothing for him. So
right.
I think Wayne Simmons, they definitely pushed back on, even though it was only a 1-year deal, because there was clear signs that Simmons was in decline. That wasn't just like a 1-year thing. Another thing I don't think people talk about is I could see them having been like, what are you doing trading for Louis Domingue? Because like, even though he had a nice save percentage with the Lightning, his underlying numbers were not great with the Lightning. It's just kind of that team was so insane last season that maybe kind of picked them up a little bit. So I wouldn't say that they were like, hey, listen, you need to fire Shero, but I'm sure they went to the owners and were like, listen, I don't know about these personnel decisions he's making. We're looking at these numbers and we're like, I think it's a little questionable to say the least. So I could definitely have seen that happening.
I kind of question
definitely
a little bit. Like, I understand, like, okay, a goaltender has like 20 plus wins, but Tampa Bay defensively was super stacked and their offense was just firepower, but they got destroyed by Columbus in the first round. But then of course Fitzgerald trades Domingue for Zane McIntyre, who I think has done a pretty good job in Binghamton, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he had some insane. He had like back-to-back shutouts in his first 2 games for Binghamton or something like that. So it was good that they actually got a reliable backup for Gilles Sen, who's doing pretty well down there too.
Sen's another goaltender I actually wanted to ask about. Can you elaborate more on our 6'4" Swiss goaltender?
So I didn't watch Binghamton play all that much this season. But from what I've seen, he's obviously a big dude, but he's really athletic, and I think the Devils kind of seem to like that in drafting goalies because Mackenzie Blackwood's a super big dude, 6'4" or whatever, and he's really insanely athletic. And then Akira Schmid is supposed to be pretty athletic, even though he had a kind of a tough season in the USHL this year, mostly because of injuries. But yeah, Sen, I don't know. He shouldn't be penciled in to be the backup for Blackwood next season, but if he does well in Binghamton, I could see him getting NHL games. He's already like 25 years old, and he was playing professionally in Switzerland before he came over here. So it's not like he's, this was his first professional season. So, but
in the NLA, the Swiss league, sorry to cut you off, is it's like AHL, NHL caliber, somewhere in between, like if between those two levels. Like you got retired or former NHLers, and you got upcoming stars that could be coming over to the NHL. So it's a good blend to have.
Yeah, it's definitely not
goaltender.
Yeah, it's definitely not a bad league. So him getting although he was on a pretty bad team there. I think he was on Davos, and
HC Davos.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, he kind of with Schmid having kind of a bad season. Sen kind of just emerged as the Devils' best goaltending prospect in like the second half of the season. He was really good for the Binghamton because what would they win, like 26 out of 35 games before everything was suspended. So, and he was a big part of that. He got his save percentage up to like 905, and I think at one point in the season it was down like at 885. So he definitely made noticeable improvement as the season went on, and I think that should give the Devils kind of some hope with their goaltending situation, at least within their system.
And speaking of goaltending, we can, jump around right now, but Devils backup goaltending has been an issue, not just this season, but some of the names that'll be free agents this year: Halak, Hudobin, Thomas Greiss. Out of those guys, there's probably a couple
Leonard.
more on. Leonard's
I
on
think
there. Crawford, all those
Cam
guys.
Talbot's a free agent too, I think.
Yeah. Who would be your ideal backup goalie for the Devils?
I mean, if I was talking about this with Tyler Kelly the other day on Twitter, and
Good boy.
That's right.
I actually was in on that conversation too.
Yeah, we were talking about this the other day. Definitely Robin Leonard, if you can get him for the right term and money. I mean, if you have that makes up. He's been so obviously what he did with the Islanders wasn't a fluke because he was doing it with Chicago this year, and Chicago's defense was just miserable. So if you can get Leonard on like a 3-year deal or something like that, say for like $6 million a year, you got to do it because him and Blackwood, that just makes it could cover up so many other flaws with the rest of the team that you could actually have a pretty competitive team going at least for next season. But if you can't get Leonard, I would really like Halak as like a short-term backup.
He impresses me a lot. I know Halak was with the Bruins. I mean, he still is with the Bruins, but he did well with Montreal, and some of his primetime numbers were with Montreal, and he brought it over.
I mean, he wasn't bad in St. Louis either.
Yeah, he's never really been like with the Islanders. Their defensive structure was kind of a mess, but he was still all right there. I mean, he's been good pretty much everywhere he's been. And I don't think the Bruins are going to re-sign him. So, I mean, if he's there, he'd be like the ideal backup. Hudobin is actually kind of like, I was looking at his numbers not too long ago, and they're pretty sick. But if you could get Hudobin too, that would probably be sneaky, like underrated signing. But they definitely have their options, and they have to address it this offseason. Some of it will depend what they do with Schneider too.
Should be bought out though. As much as I like the guy, and I know he's Jack Hughes's like host family parent.
Yeah,
I don't see Schneider long term as a Devils goaltender. I see him more along the lines of maybe he might go to Seattle, maybe he might end up retiring. After all this, because I mean, he's had so many ups and downs. It's kind of like, your career is based off your your health and how many injuries can you really put up with that would hurt your performance and be able to like make enough money to support your playing career.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think it's kind of time for especially if there's a new GM. I think they might be like they want to kind of bring in their own guys. So I think it's time to buy them out. I mean, I love Schneider too. It's unfortunate they never put a team together when he was really like in his peak playing years. He's just, you don't know if he's healthy all the time, and he's just not. He hasn't been a reliable backup, and they need someone behind. They need a 1B to Blackwood at this point, and I don't think it's Schneider. It's just, I think it's time to pull the plug.
They have to address it. I mean, you can't go back. You can't go into next season whenever it starts with the same goaltending duo that you had this year. I mean, everybody said going into this season it was weak. I mean, it shouldn't have been that weak if Schneider doesn't get hurt or cramps or whatever in the first game. And you never know. But this is something that, again, goes back to Shiro, that, a fault, a mistake, whatever you want to call it, is something that he didn't address in this past offseason. And I know one of the things, Joe talks about buying him out. I think one of the things that's being brought up with everything on hiatus is potentially similar things we saw after the 04-05 lockout with compliance buyouts for guys, especially if it's a smaller cap.
Yeah, that's something they could look at too. It'd be interesting to see what they do. I mean, I agree. There's no way they can go into the next season unless they're like they're like, we're not going to be competitive next season, so we're just going to hang on to him. But I mean, the owners kind of made it sound like they want to be competitive as soon as possible, and I think, I don't see that happening with Schneider because he's just like, his play is so up and down at this point. You don't know what you're going to get from him. If they get someone like Halak, and he could probably come in and play like 25-30 games behind Blackwood, that would be a pretty big improvement in my books.
I think that's something else that the team needs to address too, is what's their actual philosophy. It's just my opinion. I've written it a couple of times too. Just the direction. They need a single direction. It felt like there was too much, not a lot of unity going on. You have one message here, owners say something else. It's just something's getting lost there. And I think ownership needs to set the tone with it, and everybody else needs to follow.
Yeah, I agree there too. I think that's that's going to depend on who the next general manager is. If whether it's Tom Fitzgerald or they look to an outside candidate like Mike Gillis. Yeah, right. They've interviewed him twice
Mike
before
Gillis,
the shutdown, and I know Gillis is not interested in being a GM again, but he would maybe be interested in having a title of like president of hockey operations. And I've written about that a couple times for the hockey writers, and I think that would actually be perfect for the Devils, because then what Gillis could do is like, listen, this is how we're going to run things. And he's big into like sports science and analytics too. So, he could make the analytics department, work with the front office in like a coherent manner, unlike what it was apparently with Shero. So I would be a big fan of bringing in Gillis in that capacity, and then you kind of just let him build the front office the way he wants to. I think that would be really good for the Devils, and it would give them that direction and philosophy that you mentioned that they really need.
Yeah, I would be a fan with Gillis. I personally think they do need look at all the good teams, around the league. They have a president of hockey operations, GM, assistant GM, so on and so forth. And the Devils need that structure. Obviously, Lou was there for years. He had both titles. He was given the keys to the car in 86, 87, and they were rolling. But you have to have that
structure. There's no doubt about it. And I think Gillis is like the perfect fit for that. And then he could bring in his boy, Lawrence Gilman, who's the assistant general manager of the Maple Leafs right now. And he get a bit of a Vancouver reunion in New Jersey.
Yeah. And one other thing, like, oh yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Checking at some of the seasons that Mike Gillis has done in his first 3 seasons, or to dailyhive.com. This is and it was in season. His first offseason was Kyle Wellwood, Darcy Hordichuk, Ryan Johnson, Curtis Sanford, Pavel Dimitra, who long time ago passed away after his success with Team Slovakia when he died with the plane on Yaroslav Locomotive.
That's right. You're right.
Yeah, Locomotive, yeah.
And he had Matt Sundin, who only played half a season with Vancouver, making $8.6 million in the process. And then he traded.
That was a weird trade. That was such
that was a weird one.
And get this. At that time, soon to be Devil, Gillis traded for Steve Bernier, sent third rounder and second rounder to Buffalo, and then he got Lawrence Nicholot sent to Ottawa, and then Shane O'Brien. So that was in that trade for that time.
Yeah, Gillis did a lot of really good things in Vancouver. He got Christian Ehrhoff for like basically a bag of pucks. He signed Dan Hamhuis to this. Jonathan Willis wrote a really good article about it in The Athletic like last year, I think last March, basically arguing that Gillis and Lawrence Gilman deserve another chance to run a front office. Like he walked into a good situation when, anytime you inherit Roberto Luongo and the Sedins, you're going to be all right. But I mean, he put in the pieces there. I think Mikhail Samuelson was another guy he brought in. He brought in the pieces there to make him a Stanley Cup contender. And there was a reason why he was the GM of the year in 2011, I think, or something like that around there. So,
and he drafted Schneider.
Yeah, he did. Although his draft record in Vancouver was pretty terrible. I was looking at it when I was doing a piece about him. That's one of the big concerns I would have bringing in Gillis. But if he's president of Hockey Hops, as long as he doesn't bring in his amateur scouts he had in Vancouver, I think the Devils would be fine.
Jordan Schrader in the first round, 22nd overall. And then he did sign Tanner Glass, who then later on play on the GST line for the Winnipeg Jets when they came back to Winnipeg.
And I think his biggest draft success there was drafting Bo Horvat, which was the last draft class he had as Vancouver's GM before they fired him in 2014. And everyone knows why he got fired. Like, obviously the Luongo thing wasn't great. But he was also forced John Tortorella as coach from ownership. And I don't ever see how Gillis would, that's just, it seems like a weird combination. So that was part of the reason why
exactly
didn't work out there. So I think it was Larry Brooks who said a couple of weeks ago that the Devils have already interviewed him twice. So there's definitely mutual interest, I think, and if they're looking to bring him in as president of Hockey Ops, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't do it now.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be the perfect time to do it.
I think.
Right?
I just want to let the stuff saved.
That's good. I don't see Alex in here though.
I just sent him the link.
Okay.
So yeah. Almost like I'm just sending him directions. So anyways, all right. I have that. All right, Alex is back.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, Alex is here. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's all right.
Connection, power outage somewhere.
Yeah, we're good.
All right. Hopefully not too many people are on their Wi-Fi's too much. Anyways, I'll try to hit on that fourth season where Gillis was coming off that disappointing Stanley Cup run. Draft day 2011, Nicholas Jensen was picked in the 29th overall in the first round. It said the team from 2011, with the exception of Christian Ehrhoff, was kept to Chris Higgins, Maxime Lapierre, who really was a key player in that playoff run.
Yeah.
And Andrew Alberts and Sami Salo, Kevin Bieksa.
Yeah, Manny Malhotra was a big contributor too. Alex
Burrows was there.
Yeah. So, yeah, overall, I mean,
the key's so close.
Yeah. It was a Game 7 against the Bruins. I mean, they were right
there.
Yeah,
where there was a riot.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
The one thing I will say about that playoff run, because I was watching every game because I was hoping Vancouver was going to win just to see Canada get the cup. I think they made, with the poor play that Luongo did have in Boston. I understand he's your number one, but something when Schneider played in Boston in those games he came in, he looked really good. I was just shocked they didn't go to him in Game 6.
Yeah, I mean, that was so long ago now. Was it like 10 years ago? I don't even remember it that well. But
2011. That's 9 years ago.
yeah, so that's kind of crazy. Yeah, I mean, I remember Schneider even he overtook. That was kind of like when things were getting a little rough with Luongo when he overtook him in the playoffs as the starter, and that was kind of like when everything just went downhill for the Canucks with Gillis. So yeah, I mean, it was a sour ending, but I really like him as a fit because he's obviously really big into analytics and sports science, and the Devils ownership really seems to want that in their next kind of GM or maybe even president of hockey ops. So, I mean, I think the only reason they're not hiring him now is because they want to interview people from other organizations that they can't right now because you can't do the in-person interviewing right now, which is so big when you're making a hiring like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what they do. Staying with the position, Tom Fitzgerald, trade deadline comes around. He's there. He's asked to make these trades, and he delivers. Joe and I, gave him a grade of B+, A-. Thoughts on what he did at the trade deadline?
Yeah, I'm right with you on the grade there. I think I gave him an A- around there. Obviously the big thing was getting Nolan Foote for Blake Coleman, and obviously the first round pick, which hopefully they end up keeping, which belongs to the Canucks right now. So yeah, that was obviously no one wanted to see Coleman traded, but when you get a package like a first round pick and a top prospect like Nolan Foote, you can't say no. And then obviously he did really well for the Andy Green trade too. He's getting a second round pick, even though it's next year, but still a second round pick for Green. And then an okay prospect and David Quenneville. You got no complaints there. Wayne Simmons obviously is not going to be a part of the team moving forward, so you just kind of have to get something in return for him, and he was able to do that. And then he even managed to get a little something in return for Louis Domingue. So I think he really strengthened his case.
About the Sammy?
What about Sami?
Right, Sammy. Right. How could I forget that? Yeah, I mean, they're not going to get they're probably not going to get that draft pick they got from him, but Kuokkanen is a legit prospect, and I could definitely see him competing for an NHL spot next season. He's already got 3 AHL seasons under his belt, and he looked really good for Binghamton when he was brought in after the trade. So, yeah, he did really. That was probably between Foote and Kuokkanen, he was able to strengthen their prospect pool, and so I think he really strengthened his case to be then at least get the job permanently. He's definitely going to be on ownership's short list.
I do think, meanwhile, we have these guys in the pipes, if not on the mainstay at the NHL level. Going forward, what would you give Kyle Palmer a contract?
Ooh, so I would definitely look to sign him long term, because he's the exact type of player the Devils need. His shooting talent is so hard to replace. So if you lose him, it's not easy getting a player like him back in the fold. I mean, you kind of hope maybe Nolan Foote could be that, but it's no guarantee. I would probably try to give him something around anywhere in between 5 to 7 years and between $6 to $7 million a year. I think that would probably be what I'd be looking to give him. Anything over $7 million a year, I think would be too much. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, he's got to be part of the team going forward.
Do you see it as a priority this offseason since he has, 1 year left on his deal after this year? Would it make sense to try to extend him whenever, they're allowed to start doing transactions?
Yeah, for sure. Assuming, let's say they just end up canceling the season and the offseason kind of be a regular thing. If you can get him signed like that first part of July when it usually starts, I would try to get it done as soon as possible, but it also depends a little bit on the next GM. I think if Fitzgerald is the next GM, there's definitely a better chance, but if you bring someone from the outside, you never know. So it'll depend a little bit on that too, but if they can get it done this summer, I definitely would try to get it done this summer.
Yeah. That's my feeling. That's my feeling too. I think they need to keep him. I think they need to make it a priority to keep him. He's a Jersey boy. He loves playing here. He just fits this team perfectly. And obviously, he's playing top line here. Any place else, he's probably not. But he's just everything about him is that he's like, you compare it. This so and so is a typical Bruin. This guy fits this system. Kyle Palmieri is the New Jersey Devil.
Yeah, and it's like Tom Fitzgerald was saying at the trade deadline too, when someone, I forget who it was, someone asked him about trading Palmieri.
I think it was Nick Alberga.
Yeah, someone like that.
Alberga is the one that said it. I remember the interview.
Yeah, he was asking about trading Palmieri, and Fitz was I think Fitz basically said you don't really trade like a 30-goal scorer for nothing. So, and Palmieri would have definitely hit 30 goals if the season, continued. Okay. So, yeah,
a lot of things could have happened.
Yeah, that's very true.
There was a lot of momentum going forward once they got on the good side with Nasruddine's system. I mean, we're talking about like all these nuts and bolts on each line combination. Now we're talking combinations. Let's put the draft a little bit to the side. Now, just let's think if tomorrow begins the next few months till the season starts up. Who's your line combination for the first two lines? Then you go third and fourth line.
All right. So for the first line, I would probably do something like I would probably go with Jesper Bratt, Nico Hischier, and Nikita Gusev. Then the second line would be trying to find a left winger to play with Jack Hughes and Kyle Palmieri. It would be kind of tough. I think that's where they might need to bring someone in from outside the organization, but maybe if Nolan Foote really shows that he can play in the NHL right away, it would be kind of interesting to see two really good shots playing on the wings of Jack Hughes, who's like a pass first kind of center. I think that's what I would like. But I don't know if it happens.
Ideally, reality is they probably try to bring somebody in.
Yeah, I would imagine they try to trade, or you never know if they might get someone in the draft who could play right away. That's also a possibility, but that remains to be seen.
Like sometimes, these these last couple of seasons, we've been seeing some early picks that jump straight into the draft, and some of them stick right away, and some of them click.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Alexis Lafreniere he'll definitely be able to stick right away. And if the Devils get lucky again and somehow get the first pick, then there's your other left winger who could play in the top six. So, and then there'll be a couple other players too. But yeah, I don't know maybe Jesper Boquist could be able to play with on the top six next season too. But not sure about that yet either.
I will say this about Boquist, though. When he did have the opportunity to play in that role, he did look good.
Yeah, I mean, there was a bunch of the Devils. I'd never thought they put Boquist in a good position to succeed. And you could say that about Jack Hughes a lot, too. I mean, his most common line mates were like Pavel Zacha and Wayne Simmons. And I mean, no disrespect to them, but those are not the kind of players that Hughes needs on his wing. So, and Boquist was playing a lot of the time with Kevin Rooney and John Hayden too. Rooney's a fine fourth liner, but he's not. Boquist is not in the position where he could be kind of carrying those guys at points. So he was never really put in positions to succeed.
I mean, that you can say that going back a ways. I mean, you can even you can reminisce and look at all this about Adam Larson when he was first drafted. But I agree, 100%. Boquist and Hughes were not put in positions to succeed. I understand Travis Zajac has been your mainstay and he's there, but you drafted Jack Hughes number 1 for a reason. He should have been playing in your top 6 from opening night.
Yeah, and when Hughes played with Hall and Palmieri in the early part of the season is when he looked his best. I mean, his underlying numbers with those two guys were easily the best of any line combination he played with this season. So, obviously he's capable of it. They were just kind of asking Hughes to carry a line, and And he wasn't capable of doing that. He can't do that with Simmons and Zaka. He needs guys like Hall and Palmieri.
A little bit more fleet of foot, guys that can play a good.
Yeah, he just needs some scores around him.
Yeah, I mean, you could even say, I mean, Nico's finally, come into his own this season, 3 years, but, put his man weight on. And same thing will happen with Jack. I mean,
yeah.
Nico's, if it's not Palmieri, Nico is then I would think the next captain of the team, but it's between him and Palmieri.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be one of those two guys for sure.
I do think that going forward that there's going to be a lot of speculating once the new GM is assigned, that it kind of tells a story on who the Devils could acquire and see what pieces they can move. And with that extra collateral from the recent trades from Tampa Bay, Vancouver, and the Islanders, it is good ammunition to use.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be interesting to see if they end up with 3 first-round picks. I at first was thinking, all right, you got to use at least maybe the Vancouver pick to get some NHL talent. But this draft class is so good in the first round that I've kind of shifted to them just using all 3 picks in the draft. They could definitely use that Islanders pick, the 2021 in an NHL trade, but I think I would lean more towards just using the 3 first-round picks in this draft class.
Yeah, from what I've been keeping an eye on is that there's so many great players that could be top 10. They're hitting like top 15 and whatnot. It's being pushed back too, which is a good thing, because the Devils that are having that pick at 17, you could strike at a really good player at that time where you could get a Caden Goulet, or you could get what else is his name? Schneider, Braden Schneider.
Yeah, Braden Schneider, yeah.
I actually watched them guys during the prospects game, and I was actually sold on a little bit of both of them. I saw a little bit of your write-ups, so I have to agree with both.
Yeah, I like Goalie a lot. He skates really well I guess we just might as well get into draft stuff here. I like Goalie a lot, that 17 pick, if the Devils still have it. He's more of a safe pick, but he skates really well for someone his size. He's like 6'3", 187 pounds or something like that, and he'd probably be their second best defense prospect after Ty Smith if they took him. So they could definitely he would. I think that would be the best place for them to get a defenseman in this draft, would be around that 17th pick.
Yeah, I mean, and then one of the big I mean, obviously, everybody calls it, the Shorts Olympics with the combine, but, that's where you can scout some of those, late round picks, second, third rounders. And it's a shame that, with everything going on, that there's going to be no scouting combine this year.
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to impact some teams who are, doing their draft homework. That's always like just kind of a fun time too, because you get to see the teams are like interviewing players, and you see it on social media and stuff, and you kind of get to know the prospects a little better. So yeah, it kind of sucks that
it does
not happening. Kind of sucks it's not happening this year, but it is what it is.
I actually
speaking of the draft, another thing that Devils Twitter was exploding about was the young goaltender from Russia.
Oh yeah,
this year.
Askarov.
Yaroslav Ostrog.
Yeah. It was a bit of a hot topic on Twitter yesterday. That's for sure.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing with Askarov is that, like, he's ridiculous prospect. Like, there's no doubt he's a top 10 talent. But I think, Jim, were you in on this conversation with me and Tyler Kelly too?
I think so, yeah.
I wasn't, but I have a good read on Askarov. Yeah,
I mean, I wouldn't use a top 10 pick on a goalie at this. I know the Devils really need a goalie, but like the thing with them is they need more immediate goaltending help, and Askarov is probably not going to be playing in the NHL for at least a couple of years, probably more. So you're buying when you're drafting him, you're thinking, all right, he's going to contribute for us maybe like 3, 4, 5 years down the road, like Sorokin is going with the Islanders right now, and Shesterkin, with the Rangers, they didn't come over for a while. So
I don't think Vasilevsky came over right away either.
I don't think he
took
did
his
either.
time.
Yeah, and Samsonov didn't come over. He took a while to come over too, I think, right? For the Capitals.
Yeah.
So that's why I wouldn't use the top 10 pick on him. Because I think the Devils could get more. They could get talent that's closer to being able to play in the NHL with the top 10 pick, like Jack Quinn or Alex Holtz or something like that, or Lucas Raymond.
Dude, Alex Holt's a beast.
Yeah, his shot's insane.
Him as well in my notes. So if anyone wants me to do that, I can fire away on some of those things.
Alex Holt was ridiculous. Him and Lucas Raymond at the World Juniors this year. That was unbelievable to watch for Sweden.
Yeah, Holtz his shot's nuts. I mean, if the Devils get him, he even has a better shot than Nolan Foote, I think. And I mean, if the Devils got him, I think he may be a dark horse to play in the NHL next season, but he's at least 1 year away. And I mean, can you imagine if the Devils got, have Holtz, they have Jack Hughes or Nico setting up Holtz for like the next 5+ years? I think they definitely live with that. I mean, his shot is just ridiculous.
I think a lot of people would live with that.
Yeah, that's true for sure.
I think a lot of Devils fans would be happy with that.
Yeah.
But I mean, Askarov, I mean, look, I like him. I think he's a good prospect. I think he was. It is a 19-year-old tournament. Everybody knows it.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't
surprising that he struggled.
Yeah, I wouldn't put that World Junior. I know he was terrible at the World Junior, but I mean, it's a 17-year-old goalie. That's not an easy thing to do. And if you look at Askarov's numbers in the VHL, he's playing in a pro league as a 17-year-old, and he had like a .920 save percentage, that's nuts. Really see that from an old goaltending prospect who hasn't even been. So, if he's there at the 17th pick, different that. Like if he's there,
I have
you
some
got
details I wrote about Askarov. When I wrote this, it was in the middle of December, and it was from his MHL season. And given that fact, he's 6'2", 160 pounds. One of the things that stands out to me is he's very poised. He plays the puck. Not only does he play the puck, he will come out of his net and he will poke check like a Hedberg. And he's very involved in every single play.
I mean his athleticism is crazy too. I remember watching the U18 tournament last year. I think it was. I'm pretty sure he played in that one. Like Jack Hughes and that ridiculous team USA were in it, and you can see why. People were like, "Yeah, this guy's going to be a ridiculous prospect." He even got in a game in the KHL. I'm looking at his stats on Elite Prospect this year, and he got in a game for St. Petersburg, and he had like a .920 save percentage in it. So like, he's no doubt the best goaltending prospect to come along since probably, I guess, Shesterkin in 2014. So, and everyone knows the Devils need goaltending, but like, I can't. I'd have to be talked into using a top 10 pick on him.
I think what's going to happen is most teams usually don't feel the need to jump on a kid right away because he's a Russian, goaltender, and usually plus he's a goaltender. He takes a little bit longer, so it's not going to be like bring him over this and that. But I do know that the Devils and their regional scouts over the years have been so good at getting KHL and Russian type players also in North America that play here to become drafted that are interested in the Devils organization. I can see them using that 17th overall pick and maybe moving a little bit further up to get them. So if that's the case, we could still get them.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone would be opposed to taking him at the 17th pick. I mean, I haven't really seen anyone that said that, at least. So it's just like the debate is he's definitely a top 10 talent, and like if you don't think he's going to be there at the 17th pick, are you going to be like, well, we can't really pass on him here. If we think someone's going to take him in between the 10th and the 17th pick, I guess we kind of have to take him here. But like I would prefer to get someone like Jack Quinn, with the 10th pick if you could.
Yeah. I mean, they were saying Askarov was going to be the highest drafted prospect since Carey Price. I mean,
Yeah, but Carey Price was like the 5th overall pick too, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, but Price was also playing, North America
Yeah.
too. So it's a big difference.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if Askarov won top 10, but I'd be kind of surprised if the Devils use the top 10 pick, especially if they end up, maybe if that top 10 pick ends up like sliding back a little bit because of whatever happens in the draft lottery, and say that like ends up 12th or something, then there might be at that point where like, all right, Jack Quinn's kind of off the table, and maybe Jake Sanderson's off the table too. So we're gonna take Askarov with the 12th pick, and I guess I could see it there, but I don't know. It's good. It's definitely Devils fans are gonna be debating this, until the draft happens. I'm sure, because Askarov really is just the most legit goaltending prospect I've seen in such a long time.
But you made a good point yesterday on Twitter. You said Devils need to draft to need. And that's a word you hear a lot in NFL draft.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes up, it's like, all right, teams got to draft to their need. Not, all right, the best available players there, but is it what they need?
Yeah, so I mean, like, the article I wrote was just kind of just going over like what if they took that approach, that need thing, but I don't know if that's not the approach I would take. I would still go best player available over them.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing with this draft is like it's a really strong class on the wing, and the Devils kind of weak in that department in their prospect pool. So like if they end up with let's say they stay at 6th and 10th, and they end up taking, I don't know, Alex Holtz or Lucas Raymond with the 6th pick, and then Jack Quinn or Dawson Mercer with the 10th pick, and you're taking 2 legit prospects at that spot, but like you're also not hurting yourself. Even though you're drafting by need, like Holtz and Quinn would be legit prospects for them. So I wouldn't be. I mean, we know teams go draft on need all the time, but if you got best player, they should still go best player available. Like if Marco Rossi's available at the 6th pick,
you got to take Rossi.
Yeah.
He reminds me of an Austrian version of Nico Hischier, a little bit more updated, a little bit faster, a little spur at times, but he will go behind the net without, feeling the pressure from like the opposing defenseman. And I actually, you know what, this brings me to a good point. I want to touch on the forwards that we've talked about in the draft. Lucas Raymond, I want to touch on first. I wrote solid setup man from behind the net, and he's a great passer to team shooters. He's very cerebral as a forward. He crashes the net, and crisp, high energy guy. That especially on goal drives, on net, and then he's solid and elite with his wrist shot and sometimes his slap shot. And he's an absolute clutch, and maybe this year's Cole Caulfield.
Cole Caulfield is Cole Caulfield. I think Cole Caulfield would be closer to Holtz in terms of shooting. I mean, I think Holtz has the best shot in this class. Raymond's a little bit. I agree with you what you're saying about Raymond and his playmaking ability. Like he's probably one of the most creative players in this draft class. And even though he only had 10 points in 33 games for Lunda, I mean, they were one of the best teams in the SHL, so there just really wasn't the ice time for him. But when he was playing in the Swedish Junior League, he was pretty much, you could tell he was a step above the competition. And he's just he's a beast on the forecheck. Like he's always creating havoc, like chasing down. If defenseman's got the puck behind the net, he's in there kind of trying to break up the rush and stuff. And he's a surprisingly really good defensive. For his age, a 17-year-old, he's a really good defender too. Like he's just a complete all-around player. So if he's there at 6 overall, I mean, that's a case where you'd be getting best player available, but you'd also be kind of taking care of the need thing.
Well, and it reminds me, the way you described everything, it reminds me of what they had with Blake Coleman right now before they traded him. And I made the comparison I put it out there because I was watching the game one night, and the way he was playing well shorthandedly, but he's breaking up everything. I'm like, oh, this reminds me a lot of John Madden.
we love players like that.
Yeah, and I think Raymond would definitely be like, the only thing with him is he needs to get bigger. He's only 160
again.
He's 5'10", 170
yeah,
pounds.
Yeah, he needs to put on weight. So you're not going to be seeing him playing. He definitely won't be playing in the NHL next season. But spend the season in Sweden, put on some weight, and maybe he's over in 2020, 21, 22. So,
sticking with Sweden, his teammate Alexander Holt is 6 feet tall, 183 pounds. As a right wing shot, he's really aware on offense. Dwells very well from the point and the slot. Great shot from the blue line and the crease. Drives the net with speed and bravery. Does that sound like a future Devil?
Yeah, it definitely does, especially the driving towards the net with a kind of a bravery kind of thing. You think of like the older Devils teams with like guys like Madden and Pandolfo who would just kind of like create havoc, or Bobby Holik, of course. But yeah, Holtz would. I think if we're going on like a need kind of basis, I think Holtz fits a little bit more than Raymond does because of his shot. I mean, his shot. I was watching. I don't know if you guys know that guy on Twitter, Yannick St. Pierre. He draft out. I watch his draft videos all the time. They're great. And I was watching his on Holtz, and like Holtz's shot is just, he'll pick his spot from anywhere on the ice and he'll hit the target. And I mean, I don't think the Devils have had a shot like that since Kovalchuk wasn't around. So and the thing is, he got bigger this season too. He was not like 185 pounds. He's been putting in the work. Bulking up, so that's why he might be a little bit closer to NHL ready than we think. If he's there at 6 overall, it'd probably be, for me, it'd be between Holtz and Raymond. I honestly wouldn't care either way. They're both such good prospects.
Both good players. Both, obviously, no, you're never gonna see again where like Brian Burke makes the deal to get both Sedins because they don't play.
Yeah.
But I mean, hypothetical world, if the Devils could pull off something where you could get both of those guys, that's great, but it probably won't happen.
Yeah.
But Holtz, I agree. I think Holtz over Raymond. I mean, you can't go wrong with either guy. But I think when it comes to filling a need, or even if it's best player, I think Holtz there. I think that would be better for him. Bigger guy. Again, you look at it. Last couple first round picks the Devils had. Especially the number ones. Nico a little smaller. Jack Hughes definitely, needs to put on his weight. So I don't know if you want to go down that road again. If you can get a guy that's NHL ready that can come in, I think that'd be perfect. Yeah,
if we're talking about size and body mass index, it's definitely Alexander Holtz. We haven't touched on Quentin Byfield yet. So I want to like, if we get to the sweet spot of picking the first two, what I wrote about Byfield is he's 6'3", 214 pounds. He's a center, big body, lots of speed, playmaker, excellent stick handler, two-way player, very smart, very good shot. He has a wicked slapper. I think he's the North American version of Evgeny Malkin without the frustration.
Yeah, I saw someone. I forget too. I saw someone compare him to Evgeny Malkin. I think I've seen some people like say, oh, maybe if the Devils get the second pick, they should consider Tim Stützle. But I think it'd be pretty easy to take Quentin Byfield there. I mean, if you're looking at if they take Byfield and you got Jack Hughes, Nico, and Byfield for the next however long going down the middle, that's kind of like the similar. It's not exactly what Pittsburgh had with Crosby, Malkin, and Stahl, but that's pretty nice. It's pretty close. Yeah. So, I think Byfield would be the pretty easy pick at number 2. I mean, he's a really good skater for someone his size. You don't see that all the time. Sometimes it can be a little awkward, but like they can have awkward, I guess, kind of form. But he's an elite playmaker. He's got a nice shot too. I mean, there's a reason why he's been like the number 2 prospect for the longest time. So, it would be a pretty easy choice to take him. I think if the Devils get lucky and they end up number 2.
And I'm not sold on Anton Lundell, talking about going back to a European player, 165. at center. To me, I'm not sold on him because what I wrote down from what I saw in highlights, he's a strong two-way center. He's a slick passer. His hockey vision is part of his gifted hockey sense. He has amazing wrist and snapshot. His zone entries are very much a good part of his game, but everything else under him doesn't really jump out or make me want to take a number 10 pick on him or anywhere in that range.
He's a little bit of I agree with what you're saying there. Like, he's a great defensive player, but I'm kind of a little bit up in the air what he'll be in the NHL in terms of an offensive player. Like, I don't see him having the offensive upside of someone like Jack Quinn or Holtz or Raymond or, any of those other guys, even Perfetti, who could go in the top 10. So, I would be a little bit hesitant in taking him in the top 10, but I think he's so good defensively, and he's already pretty well built to play in the NHL. He's already like 6'1", 190 pounds. So I don't think there's much left, much longer for him to come over and play in the league. So, but yeah, if I were the Devils, if he's there at 10,
I'd skip.
You would skip. I think I would still take him there. I think he'd probably be best player available at that point. I mean, you never know what happens in the picks before, but I think I would take him. It'd be kind of tough not to.
I think if Marco Rossi makes it down that low, you got to take him. I mean,
oh yeah, no, that's a no-brainer. Yeah, if Marco Rossi makes it down that low, I mean, you come away with the steal of the draft at that point.
I mean, like, I know he's 5'10" and 165 pounds, but I did write down that he is very shifty, marvelous speed. Stick handling is off the charts. Quick snapshot. He's a true playmaker, mid and low danger zone player. It's just, that's kind of what you got to expect out of these younger, more skilled centers these days.
Yeah, and what I was actually most impressed about with Rossi is he's only like 5'9" or whatever, but he's quite strong, and his face-off percentage in like the OHL was like 59% or something insane like that, which is really impressive for a guy who's still in his draft year. So if the Devils drafted Rossi, I think there would be a really, really good case that he'd be ready to play in the NHL next season and probably be a pretty solid contributor. Maybe in like I could even see him playing in a top 6 role or at least a middle 6 role.
Yeah. I mean, they list him at 5'8" and a quarter.
Yeah, but he's like 180 pounds, I think. So somewhere around there.
So that's pretty good for his size. I know one of the, obviously, Devils defense is, they seem to always draft defense a lot because it's a need. Your thoughts on Jamie Drysdale?
I think that's someone we're going to be seeing if the Devils end up in the top 5, around there. I think there's going to be a lot of people saying the Devils should take Jamie Drysdale, and because it's pretty clear he's the best defenseman in this class. Not a strong class defensively to begin with. I just think right now that the Devils' strength in their prospect system is actually defense between like Ty Smith and Riley Walsh and Kevin Ball and some of these other guys. Misule. I think what they need more is some game-breaking forwards. They don't have that in their system. Like Joey Anderson and Jesper Boquist are nice prospects, but like those are not like those guys are not like Alex Holtz and Lucas Raymond. Like the Devils really need someone like that.
A really good
Rossi. Yeah, they need guys like Holt or Raymond or Rossi or Perfetti in their system. They don't have that right now, and they need guys like that to put around Nico and Hughes if they want to get past the point of just being in the bottom of the NHL standings every season.
What I've seen in Drysdale, for a 5'10", 163-pound defenseman, he has really good vision on top of the blue line, pretty good distributor. He has great awareness and up the ice skating, and he has quick and accurate wrist shots from what I've seen. He's a very fluid skater. I mean, we need a guy like that. I have to agree with you.
Yeah, no, like there's no doubt they need someone like that, especially on defense. But like I think having Ty Smith kind of like offsets that a little bit from now, especially since I haven't looked that much at the 2021 draft, but apparently that's the draft class to go after defensemen. So I think the Devils would be all right just skipping out on, or at least passing on Drysdale this time around and taking the forwards they need to get, and then next season they go heavy on taking defensemen, and which is supposed to be a defense heavy draft. I think even Jack Hughes' youngest brother is
Luke.
Yeah, right. He's one of the top prospects on defense for next year. So I think right now just get your forwards, and then you can focus about building defensive prospects in next year's class when it's supposed to be a really strong one.
Yeah, I agree. I agree definitely there. I mean, if the Devils are lucky enough to, I mean, Brian Burke never a fan of like teams drafting multiple times near the top. I mean, but that's him. But if the Devils are lucky enough to get that lottery or in the top 5, I mean, the list of forwards up there, you rattle them off. Byfield, Perfetti, all those guys. I mean, it's something that they need to address because they really don't have that prospect.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if they like end up getting obviously because he's an insane talent, but like even if you get someone like Stützle or Holtz or Raymond, Perfetti. I mean, that's just does so much for their system as far as forwards, and those are guys you could put around Hughes and Nico for like years to come, and exactly what they need.
It'd be
the biggest coup would be if the Montreal Canadiens somehow landed the number 1 pick and got Lafreniere.
Oh, that'd be insane.
They would go.
I mean, they'd be like they'd go absolutely nuts.
Up there.
It'd be unfortunate that wouldn't happen in Montreal, because isn't that where the draft was supposed to be this season, right?
Yeah, I was actually going to the draft this year.
Yeah, that would be unfortunate. They get the first pick, a chance to draft Lafreniere, but they wouldn't be able to. I mean, still, I think they'd be happy just getting Lafreniere anyways, because I mean he's so insane. That would be quite the story.
Yeah, I just have this feeling that something it'd be like close, because the year, I mean, not to say that the Devils were going to get Matthews, but I actually looked into the numbers and they were one lottery ball away from actually getting him, and it was Toronto that beat him out. So it's like high profile prospect in a high profile city for an original 6 team. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. Let's imagine Matthews and like all those guys going against Lafreniere and I guess Suzuki, and because he looks like he's gonna be legit too.
Caulfield's on that.
Yeah, that adds so much to the Montreal Toronto rivalry. It would be so good for the sport.
It would be insane.
Absolutely, I would love it.
I'd tune into every Leafs Habs game if that happened.
I was just playing around on Tankathon, and the Devils go to 7th overall, 11th, and 17th. So get this. The Devils would get Alexander Holtz. The Devils get Askarov at 11th, and then the Devils get Rodion Amirov, the left wing.
Oh yeah, I like him a lot.
I actually have notes on him. So for anyone who wants a little insight, he has very quick hands, quick shot, high energy skater, excellent sniper. He loves playing in the slot. And that's for a kid who's coming out of UFA.
Yeah, and he got a lot of time in the KHL this season too, and apparently he's a really good two-way forward. He plays in all situations. If the Devils ended up, what was it? You said it was Holt, Askarov, and Amirov. Those were the 3 picks they would get.
Yeah,
that'd be a pretty good draft. I don't think anyone. I mean,
that's a pretty good.
Yeah, I think I'd be all right with that. I think the player that I don't feel like is getting enough attention, and then it should be someone the Devils consider with the 17th pick if he's there, is Seth Jarvis. I mean, I was watching his highlight video from Yannick St. Pierre the other day, and I mean, I don't understand how he's not being considered for like top 10 pick. He's probably one of the best skaters in this class, and his playmaking is just incredible. He's such a good stick handler too. And he had 98 points in like 58 games in the WHL. So that would be someone I'd be
another guy,
that'd be someone.
Not to cut you off. Another.
Yeah, that's right.
Who my eyes really popped on during the games from Ostrava on TV was Yad Mishak. and I started writing notes on him. That he's 6 feet tall, 176 pound. He's a center mostly, but he's smart in the neutral zone, very graceful skater, and is very deceptive on the best goalie in Askarov in the 2020 draft. So he also plays the perimeter pretty well when he's on defense.
Yeah, he's actually one player I still haven't gotten around to yet. I'm still working my way towards the end of the first round kind of guys. But yeah, I've heard good things about Mishak too, and I think that's someone that maybe the Devils could consider at the 17th pick. I mean, they're gonna have a lot of options at that point. I think if Noel Gunler is there, you got to consider him too. The defenseman from, I think maybe it'd be a little bit of a reach, but William Wallinder is like an offensive defenseman from Sweden that would maybe consider at the 17th pick too.
Funny thing you
Wallinder?
Yeah, Wallinder. I wrote notes on him. 6'4", 195 left-handed defenseman. He's a big shot from low danger, great recognition, using mid to high danger zone recognition, strong along the boards, smooth skater, plays with a lot of energy.
Yeah, apparently his the biggest I guess the biggest strength of his game is his offensive ability. Apparently he's a really good skater for someone his size too, and he's not afraid to like jump in the rush and get involved offensively. And I think the Devils, if they're gonna try to draft defense this year, I think that's what they need more of than someone like Jake Sanderson or Caden Gooley, both guys who are more defensive defensemen. I think they have a lot of that in their system with Ball and Misule and a couple other guys. I think they need more guys who can move the puck, and I think Wallinder would be a really good option for them.
I mean, Craig ranks him at 18, so I mean, I guess it's not a reach if they have the 17th.
That's true,
pick.
yeah.
I mean, when you were talking about Jarvis, it reminded me when because a lot of I do some like NFL draft because I watch a lot of college football. People always ask me my opinion about that kind of stuff, and the way you brought up Seth Jarvis was the same way I brought up Drew Lock, who is the quarterback right now.
Yeah, I know who he is. Yeah,
Denver. And the Missouri quarterback, I was so high on him going into the draft. And I was like, if the Giants could get this guy, this would be perfect. He's a perfect QB. He's going to be one of those underrated talents. And sure enough, he goes to Denver, and he had a good season last year. And I feel like, what you're saying with Jarvis, he could be one of those guys that, he could be a steal.
Yeah, I definitely see that with Jarvis. I mean, I actually wouldn't be surprised if some team were like, we're taking him, fringe top 10. I think he's that good. He's just, his skating is insane. Not insane, but he's a really, really good skater. And I think he's going to be a very high-end offensive player in the NHL for whatever team takes him.
From what it seems like, and the way we three been studying the draft, it seems the theme is it's very strong, mostly talent centers and wingers. Meanwhile, there are some pockets of pretty good physical and puck-moving defensemen, but it seems that next year we'll have quality and quantity of that in a wholesale manner.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's Luke Hughes, and then I'm not looking ahead until 2021. Yeah. That's too. Yeah, we gotta get through this draft first, and then if the Devils have a really bad start to next season again, then I'll start doing my 2021 homework. But
plus the
right, yeah, I forgot about the
another
expansion
wrench
draft
into it. So
yeah, that's true.
So
yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just so much. I mean, that was one of the things. I mean, going back to like Schneider real quick. I mean, if they didn't address it, my theory has always been, all right, well, just expose them for Seattle.
Yeah, I would be surprised if they didn't. If that's the case, if maybe that's what they want to do, because this expansion draft would be next summer, right?
Yeah,
that is
so
correct.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Devils like, all right, we can hang on to him for one more season and we expose him to Seattle instead of taking the buyout and having, the dead cap hit for 2 extra seasons. I could see them maybe trying to do that too. And then, maybe they try to bring in someone who can maybe push him to be his backup to to be Blackwood's backup. That is this offseason. So yeah, I can. There's always the Seattle option. I forgot about that. It's a good point.
Yeah, you're always trying to get the best deal done to there, but moving goaltenders aren't very easy because it's always voodoo.
That's for sure. Yeah. I think, if they ended up buying him out, he could probably end up getting a job as a backup somewhere on like a cheap deal. But yeah, I think there's no way at this point anyone's going to trade for him unless like the Devils just took like 50% salary retention. So they're a bit of a tough spot. And I can understand if they hang on to him for one more season and expose him to the Seattle draft, I would understand that that kind of train of thought as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it just feels like it might be headed down that way if they it all. But again, there's so many wrenches going to be thrown into this because we really don't know what the conditions are with the picks. Some of them were playoffs.
Yeah.
It's so many unanswered questions with this season in hiatus.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Is like we don't obviously the Devils right now have 3 picks, but if the NHL ends up canceling the season, are the conditions on those picks still going to be met, and what are they going to do with them? So you just don't know right now. The Devils could end up having maybe only 1 pick because of the conditions, and the rest of the picks move to 2021 or whatever.
I don't think it's going to be that harsh, but I think there will be a lot of the 31 GMs going over each one of their conditions with the league, and then they will have someone try and sort it out one way or another because there could be consequences one way or another within the contracts. So, we're going to have a few more fire rounds of questions.
All right.
First.
All right, well, just a little heads up before questions-wise, but I just saw this come across my Instagram or Twitter or whatever. Trump's going to consult with Adam Silver, Rob Manfred, Roger Goodell, Jerry Jones, Mark Cuban to guide the reopening of the U.S. For sports and everything like that. So that I just thought was a little interesting nugget because, we were just talking about the NHL draft and all that kind of stuff and with hiatus and when, some brilliant minds right there. For Devils wise, biggest need for them outside of goaltending this offseason?
I mean, I could probably think of a couple, but I think the biggest need would.
I mean, if you want to.
No, I'm gonna go with one. I'm not gonna do that. I think the biggest need is getting another defenseman. It doesn't have to be anything major, but I think if you sign someone like Brendan Dillon in free agency, that'd be a huge upgrade for their defense. So I think that's their biggest need is getting another NHL defenseman.
And my question will be, what are you planning on doing once the NHL season does conclude? What are your top 5 articles going to be?
So if this is if the NHL seasons are over, I've already thought about it, and I'll probably be doing some stuff on the NHL or the Devils GM, be kind of examining that and maybe some other candidates they could go over besides Mike Gillis and Tom Fitzgerald. I'll be doing some more draft stuff, maybe individual profiles, covering why the Devils should target a certain player in the draft. Definitely be doing some free agency stuff, what players, they should be targeting in free agency and some stuff, what they need to do in free agency. And then what was that? How many things was that? That 3, I think, right? Yeah. So free agency, draft, GM.
Yeah,
I'll probably also be doing
3.
Some stuff later on in the summer, once the free agency stuff settles down, who's going to be on what line, what prospects have what prospects from Binghamton have a good shot at making the NHL next season, like Bastion and stuff. So yeah, that'd probably be most of the stuff I'll be doing over. But I need this conclusion here. I need some clarity on what's happening with the NHL season at this point. It's kind of tying me up a little bit.
I think everybody's waiting for that. I think same here. I'm waiting for the season just to end or whatever. We're gonna have playoffs. Great. When are we gonna have playoffs? There's some doubt. Some players have some doubt. Bettman doesn't have. In your opinion, yes or no?
I think the season's done. I don't see any chance of it happening.
Yes or no on a season?
I do think it's cooked.
Yeah.
Just the way everything's coming out. I mean, the quarantine period gets pushed back again to April 30th. But then again, you never know. I mean, if they did come back, would it be straight playoffs? Or are you going to play? I mean, obviously, guys say, "Oh, we need to have regular season games or a couple games or something." If they were to come back, do you think?
Yeah, I think that'd be the most likely scenario. There's no way
and then just start the playoffs.
If they come back, it's probably going to be pretty late into. I would imagine sometime in like June would be the time they'd come back. So, yeah, maybe you just play like a few regular season games and then you get straight into the playoffs. And then I don't know, you could even maybe see like a shortened playoff format. I don't know how they'd be able to get in like entire 7-game series in. So, could be changes to that too. Yeah, that would make sense. I don't think you could do every round best of 7. Then you'd basically have like a month.
It'll be too lengthy because you have 2 days off in a row, and it does extend it to a month.
Yeah. Well, I think they would change their schedule too. I think they would have to go back to changing their schedule with the days off in between too. It wouldn't be like 2 days off in between.
I mean, I think there's also like if they end up coming back and doing the playoffs, it could be a thing where they're just doing it on like a couple neutral sites. That way, like travel is kind of mitigated and you don't have to worry about that as much. So maybe that's a possibility. I saw that too. I was like, that's kind of random. Yeah, North Dakota. I heard New Hampshire was another. They were looking at Manchester, New Hampshire was another spot they were talking about too. So that's always a possibility that you're just kind of playing on neutral sites. You're not going to be able to host games in like the New York area or California or whatever.
It's good.
Yeah. Even next season, I wouldn't be surprised if it started without fans at least.
I mean, they were saying if they were getting it in, they would say, November would be, they can do it.
It would just be a totally different season than what we're accustomed to, which I don't really think the week really is the most exciting, but it is starting to get a little bit better, but it should be if they're going to do with the NWHL mix-in. But anyways, get a little off topic.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just so nuts that, you see like the women's professional league just like keep signing players. They're moving along. All this stuff, all these things are going to get rescheduled. It'll be interesting because I know Seattle's pushing to have the draft and the expansion draft next year, which would be, that'd be kind of cool.
I do want to go to Montreal.
I kind of want Montreal so I can have my plans back.
Yeah, that would definitely be a pretty sweet trip seeing the draft in Montreal.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I mean, I'm hoping that, because I was planning on, I was actually going to be at the World Championships this year in May too. So it would, it's kind of my entire spring calendar just got thrown out the window, but it's all right.
It is what it is at this point. It's all for naught at all this. We pretty much ran out of poutine on this one. I think we wrap it up like a burrito and eat it all.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I think we can wrap it tonight.
I'd like to say thank you so much, Alex, for coming on
thanks for having me
welcome.
on.
We've always thought of having you on, and
thank you.
We needed to change the energy level on with the.
Yeah. That was a wild episode. I was listening to it last night. He's such a character in a good way.
Yes.
He's awesome. Yeah, he's awesome.
Oh my God. Never have I had so much fun, and it's not even a party.
Oh yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I could tell just by listening to the guy. Like you just want to listen to him for hours. It was a lot of fun listening to that.
I mean, we just let him roll. I mean, that's
We
what we
said-
did. I
well,
just let him roll, and
my-
he's like, I love how
thing
he's
was
like,
the
"Oh, I
night
can curse
before
here."
was
yeah,
Jim
no
with our
problem.
last guest. If he's rolling, let him roll. That with Cam go, yeah, like let him roll. And we love you, Cam. You're officially our
Yeah,
best
just
friend
let
of the
him roll.
podcast. Even Alex agrees.
Oh yeah, no, I could totally see why. I mean, he's a riot. Some of the stories he was telling too about like how he was going in the 2012 Stanley Cup run. He was like the last guy to talk about to the team before they went on the ice. I thought that was great.
I mean, I loved his
Oh
story
yeah, that was a
about
good
how,
one
like,
too.
the
Yeah, I like that a
flew
lot.
and he, like,
Another
says,
one
like,
of my
"Ty
favorites
Domi,"
was
and he just
like
gets
he's
destroyed,
talking
and,
about
like,
how Zhislav Oliva, then you have Stevens and Danico all with their shirts off. He's like I'm the lowest man on the totem pole right now. Like they're all beasts that could destroy you pretty much.
Yeah.
and you get that sense of respect from like a rookie that's feeling intimidated, but like I don't know how it is now for a kid like Jack Hughes, but now it's more, a guy like Marty Brodeur in hockey ops. You're like, holy shnikes, this guy is someone I idolize. But I think we could wrap it up at there, though.
Yeah. Thanks for having me
Yeah, I
on
think
once
so
again.
too. I think Alex, thanks for coming on. Appreciate your insight. Definitely. If and when, hopefully there's a draft whenever it is. Love to have you on again, and we can actually,
Yeah, I'd definitely be down to join
analyze
again
the
for
picks
sure.
that even more
One available.
about what they're going to be.
That's always good to hear. Although I don't know,
Awesome.
maybe Cam
Awesome.
Jansen. Maybe you want to have him back on for draft stuff too. I don't know.
Well, I'm not sure if he's in on that, but I definitely have his number for sure. But
I don't know.
But I do have Will Scouch as well, was on earlier.
Oh yeah, Will Scouch is great. I watch his videos all the time. Yeah, he's really
I'm
good.
a patron of his. But anyways, I can't wrap this up like a burrito. I'm so terrible.
We're good. That's it. It's over.
It's over.
All right, then I'll do it. That's it. Have a good night, everybody. That's it.
Yep.
We're done. Alex, thanks for coming on. It's been a pleasure. It was awesome talking Devils hockey. Everybody have an
support your
night.
local Jersey businesses,
be safe
baby.
out there. Stay at home and support your local
All right,
business.
that's a wrap.